everybody. My name is Sarah Grandinetti, and I am joined by the beautiful, the one, the only, the dynamic Donnielle Carter. Donnielle is a facilitator of many things. I will let her tell you about that. But she is a Being You Certified Facilitator, and I'm just so grateful to be having this conversation with her, especially because in a conversation, you use words. And this topic, I mean, I guess unless you're doing it like telepathically, but then even then, like there's words involved. It's just how we communicate. So if we're not playing like dynamically with our words and being congruent with them, then what are you creating? Donnielle's going to tell us also this.
Sarah's being magical. Her magic is, the magic that she bees is actually showing out. I love it.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the contribution.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Anybody else need anything? I got you today with that. Okay, so I'm gonna click here. Oh, you already did it. You're so brilliant. Okay, I'm gonna click here so that I can watch comments.
I know, that's what I did too, and then my sound was on. I was like,
oh yeah, gotta turn that down. You know what I did last time? Also, you know, everywhere that like I've ever tried to be, you know, like totally put together show host, we're just gonna let that go. Okay. Okay, so what I'm doing now is putting it on my selfie stick so that it can not have to, it can be like in the shot, but not in the shot.
And I put it on my other computer. Not that I'm trying to dive off screen here.
Okay.
There we go.
We're killing it already. Just
if nothing else, Sarah and I are always entertaining. You should, I mean, we just get together and giggle.
I mean, but people's lives change, so same. Okay. Hello.
Maybe that needs to be your opening. Maybe that needs to be your opening theme song. Is just giggling.
Okay. Cool. I can do that. Actually, I could create that laugh track during this interview. Anyways, okay. Oh, I have a light turned over. That might burn something. Okay. Wow, I'm just being so much intensity. Okay, my friend, I want to talk about words, but first tell me like all the things that you facilitate, because people, I want them to have just a little background, because I know what you're talking about today involves body. So tell me a little bit about, you know, the body stuff as well. And then maybe we could start with, what do you love about being a Being You Certified Facilitator?
Oh my gosh. You know, honestly, as you say, Sarah, I am a facilitator of a lot of things. And I was so excited when Dr. Dane here created the Being You Facilitator program, because I remember the first Being You class he did. And, you know, I remember when the book came out and all that kind of stuff. And what was amazing to me is the very first Being You class I went and I attended, and it was like, oh, it's no prereqs, it's a beginning class, it's, you know, whatever. And I'm like, I've been doing Access for like 5, 6, 7 years, you know, okay, yeah, easy peasy. A beginning class. Oh my gosh. I still remember sitting there just floored going, everything just shifted and changed. So for me, it's always been one of the most dynamic classes in Access. And so when Dane started the facilitator program, I was there. First, I'm like, I'm there, I'm doing it, I'm choosing it, because I love the invitation to actually being you. You know, because our entire lives, I was taught how to be a daughter. I was taught to be how a sister. I was taught how to be, you know, a proper Mormon. I was taught to be a good girl. I was taught to be all of these kind of things, but I was never, ever taught to be me. And so I love being able to facilitate these classes and just invite people to them, not to fit into a category, not to fit into a stereotype or a role, but just to honestly be them, however that is, without judgment, and not defining themselves along the way. And not like, oh, I stepped into my skin. No, beyond all of that, just actually being you, whatever it is for that, 10 minutes or so, and then going from there. So I love the empowerment that shows up with these classes. So yeah.
I so agree. And watching the energy shift within people when they're like, wait a minute, I don't have to live the life my mom decided I had to live, or what, like whatever it is, like when the light bulbs go off, it's such a gift. And then how much like we as facilitators get to be more of us every time we facilitate it.
Yes.
Really, really cool. I want to say shout out to Doris and Marja are both here. They're being certified facilitators too, and we love them.
Doris and Maria.
Actually, I got to interview both of them already, so that's cool. Okay.
I know. So, I watched a lot of you and Maria with the no competition. She's brilliant. You both were brilliant on that. Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
She's awesome. I love you so much.
Me too.
Okay, so you also facilitate on bodies. So the reason why I want to like bring us back to that really quick is when we jump into this words thing, just right before we started live, you were sharing with me and like how people also create their bodies by the congruent energy of their words. And I was like, Donnielle.
Yeah. and honestly, and this is how it started for me, this fascination with the words. Well, I've always been a writer. I've always been creating worlds with my words and sentences and, my stories. I've always been that. And then when I first started taking access classes 11 years ago this month, which just blows my mind. And Dane was my first facilitator, which I still think is one of the most brilliant creations I've ever done, because I was so stubborn and resistant. I don't know who I would have listened to, except for Dane. But what was interesting was my mom was a health talk radio show host. She was a nutritionist. And when I started taking the access classes, and my very first class, Dane said, hey, what if your body has a consciousness of its own? And what if you asked it for everything that pertained to it? And I went, no, I've spent all of these years with my mom's radio show of telling the bodies what to do, how to subjugate them, how to force them to do it, how they're slowly killing you and all this kind of stuff. So it opened up this whole new world for me about bodies, which is interesting because I'd already spent, 20 years or so with my mother about bodies. And so I was like, wow, that's so weird. And then, so I started using the tools and my body changed. My body continues to change. And from there, my whole life changed. But then what was exciting is Gary Douglas, founder of Access Consciousness, was like, hey, go do this. There we have this class called Right Body for You. Do you want to be the figurehead of it, the face of it, and then go out and create it and whatever? I'm like, and be part of the book. I'm like, sure, I can do that. Why not? And so I started facilitating and creating the Right Body for You workshops that are now taught all over the world. And then from there, I also became a Access Consciousness 3-day body class facilitator, which the 3-day body class is just phenomenal. Which in the class, you get to learn how to touch, how to be touched, how to receive. It's just, and change your body. It's amazing. But what's interesting, so while I was creating these Right Body for You workshops, I work with people and their bodies all over the place, all over the world. And something I kept seeing show up was they would ask their body for one thing and they would get the exact opposite. They'd be like, okay, body, what would it take to lose 50 pounds? And they'd gain 100. Or body, what would it take to, have more energy? And then like sleep for 3 days or, whatever it is. But so with their bodies, this kept coming up. And so combining that with my love of writing, because when I first started working with access tools, it was like, oh, it's about the energy. And you look at the energetic blocks, you look at this and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, my words, I love words. What do you mean it's about the energy? Don't take my words from me. Humanoid pouting.
Right.
And, and then I started looking at, I'm like, okay, so I asked the question, why are people getting the opposite of what they asked for? And then I really started diving.
And then with that question, like what did you see start showing up?
Well, what started being revealed was the energies that people, because your body speaks energy. the universe speaks energy, earth speaks energy, animals speak energy, okay? And so we speak our words like we are now. We're having this conversation, we speak our words. And it's so interesting because when you use words, no matter what language, it pulls up an energy. And then what I also noticed was some people would ask for one thing and then energetically be asking for something else. And it was always the something else that people received because your body's listening energetically. The earth is, you know, everything else is listening energetically. And so we would say one thing and then energetically ask for something else. We would get the something else that we asked for energetically. And then people would be like, see, I'm so stupid. I asked for it and I don't get it. I can't do it. I'm not magic. I'm, you know, and all of this kind of self-judgment would come up, and I'm like, actually, you're quite potent, because if you become aware of what you're asking for.
So I'm the layman here. So how does someone, like anybody who's watching right now and is like, huh? I'm asking for it. I really, really desire it, whether it's to like lose weight, grow bigger boobs, I don't know. And you're telling me I'm not consistent with that? Like, so how does someone take that and then apply a tool to then become energetically congruent with their ask?
Well, what's interesting is one of the things you have to do is you have to be vulnerable with yourself. And let me clarify, there's a difference in being vulnerable and being a mean ass bully to yourself. Being vulnerable is willing to look at what is without judgment and without a projection. And being a bully is, I'm so mean, I'm an idiot, I shouldn't, you know, blah, 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 blah. We've all had those thoughts going through our head. And so for me, like an example, when I first started facilitating classes of energy, when the energy was really intense, I would get a pain behind my eyeball, my right eyeball. Your body communicates to you in many ways. So the more intense the energy, I would have this pain in my eye, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, the energy is so intense. My eyeball hurts. And so I would ask the question. I'm like, oh, what would it take to change it? Okay. So I'd say, what would it take to change it? Yeah. And then it wouldn't change. And I know this is the point where a lot of people go, the tool isn't working. I'm not working. It works for other people, but not for me. But if I was actually honest with myself, if I looked at those moments where I went, what would it take to change it? And on the surface, it's like, yeah, I'm like, oh, being the pain isn't fun. So what would it take to change it? Right underneath that, the energy I was, please don't change. Having the pain is validating my doubt. I'm doubting that I'm aware of energy. So having the pain is actually validating that I'm not full of crap. When my eyeball hurts, I know I'm actually perceiving something. So please don't change, please don't change, please don't change, so I can have the validation. Please don't change, please don't change, please don't change. So guess what I got? No change. So I kept going on in that until the one day where I went, oh my gosh, you know what? This isn't actually working for me. My eyeball hurting is not fun. It is not, I no longer need this to validate. I no longer doubt that I'm aware of energy. I acknowledge that I am aware of energy. So I said the exact same words. All right, body, what would it take to change this? And then it changed. Because energetically, I was actually asking for the words that I was saying.
So, okay, so what I get was like, first step, if anybody's taking notes, first step is like getting vulnerable with yourself. Because if you're asking to change something and you have a point of view that's sticking you from desiring to change it, you have to actually look at that first. Yeah. Okay. So, like, cause I like listening to you tell that story, very interesting. I just had this like, boom, moment. So thank you. I love bringing moments. I for a long time was like, I would love to lose some weight. I would love to lose some weight. I would love to lose some weight. And until I really looked at the fact that I had bought somewhere, like at the point of view that like I'd been impelled and implanted with the point of view that if I would do that, people would separate from me, and that I then wouldn't create the change in the world, and that people could identify with me, connect with me more at a heavier weight, that I wouldn't change it no matter what I tried. Like it didn't matter.
Yep.
And then recently, like stepped into way more potency of me and was like, I'm having all of the things that I came here to have and to create, and I'm creating the change that I desire to see in the world. And it literally wasn't even from like there it is again. It wasn't even from like, I want to lose weight place. I just literally was like willing to be all of me and what I came here to create and change. And it shifted the ask to lose weight. And then I got super light on like kind of trying a different eating style or whatever. I was like, okay, I'll do this, but like not from a place of like wrongness. It was literally just like, hey, what this is, or what, like, let me see what this creates kind of thing. No expectation, but I was willing to actually be in a thinner body.
Yeah, see, and I love that story because I see that stuff all the time, because it's like you look at that energetically, because we can be aware of energy throughout any timeline, because time isn't real. Another story, another topic. But yeah, so it's like you would ask the question, what would it take to lose weight energetically? But I don't really want to, because I don't want people to separate from me, and then people can receive me more if I'm like this or whatever. So please don't change, please don't change. So we say the words, what would it take to change? Please don't, please don't, please don't, please don't. It's always starting to look at that energy underneath the words that you're saying. And, and this is just one facet of this, and I love it. It's so interesting. And I actually call these I like to call these like potency moments, because a lot of people go, they're
called PMs, is what you're saying.
PMs, yes. Because it's like, a lot of people will take that moment and go, I'm such an idiot. If I just realized that then, I could have been doing it longer. Or I can't believe I created that crap. And you know what? It's not about that. It's actually, if you look at it, because looking at everything is the opposite of what it appears to be. A lot of people will go, I was so weak, I couldn't change that. I was so limited, I couldn't change it, whatever it is. Actually, if you look at that moment, you are so potent that you kept that change. You are so potent that you didn't allow that to shift. So for me, it's like, actually, if you acknowledge those moments and the potency that you were, instead of judging that you created it, just be, I was a potent mofo. Did not allow that to change or to keep that. And then if you can have that much potency in that, where can you go from there once you're clear of that judgment and limitation? And this is just, and this is just one aspect of using these words. For me, it's this fascinating area, because talking to your body is just one of them. It's talking to the universe. Because what I love is like, we get the energy of something, right? We get the energy of a future. We get the energy of a change. We get the energy of a question. We get the energy of all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, this, and then what do? A lot of times we go to the words to try to create it. And what's interesting is I see people will get the energy, and then they'll go, how do I create it with words? And they contract to try to find the words to expand the energy. What my target with this is to get people to use words to make things greater. I don't know if you guys heard that. Sorry, ice is sliding off of my. We had a blizzard yesterday, so I have ice sliding off my house. I'm like, ooh, ice noise. It is to make everything greater with the words that you're using. For me, instead of words being a limitation, what if words could be an ingredient to a greater possibility?
Meme. I like it a lot. Okay, so I want to play with that for a little bit. So I'm gonna, oh my God, so many things downloading. Okay. There are places where you'll talk to somebody and say, like, they're saying one thing. I mean, we've all had this as kids, or, you know, with our parents, or say you'll meet someone and they're like, oh my gosh, like, you're amazing. I think you're amazing. You're like, in your head, you're like, no, you actually don't even like me. Right? But they're saying all the nice things. So there's like that incongruency thing. And then, like you said, with creation, I see people like, I really like a big future, or I'd really like to like create. Right. And I know this shows up like in the facilitation business that I have with Cassie Summers. Like there'll be times when we're like out creating each other with words. It's like, what about this and what other, and then we'll have this like long sentence to describe an energy because we're like trying to get like the biggest word. Whereas before I started to really dive into the tools with Access, I was almost like unwilling to overpromise to myself. So I would keep it energetically congruent with smaller words. Can you speak on that, please?
I like the little flirt afterwards into the sunlight.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and that's what we do. You know, words have been getting a bad rap, which I find interesting. Because yeah, words, you know, again, the original language is energy. We use energy, we move energy. We do that a lot in Being You classes. We throw thunderbolts, and we do our numbers and everything. It's like
lightning bolts,
that too. And so it's like, it is about the energy. Yet we somewhere sometime went, hey, let's create a verbal language. Why not? This might be fun. What if we didn't create it for the limitation? What if we created it to strengthen, to enhance, to have fun with? We created it as a tool. So what if we could actually use it as the tool it is? Because like you were saying with you guys, you try to say less to say more, or you try to say more and you share less because you get lost into this. So it's so fun now to be able to have a conversation, and including like anybody who's a facilitator, you don't ever want to pay attention to this. Just kidding. Because it actually makes your processing more potent. Because if you're looking at the energy and you're not buying that words are the limitation, if you're looking at the energy, you can go, whew, that word matches. And so you can say one word that means everything. And, you know, and I really, Gary Douglas is such and Dane too, oh my gosh. They have this command of the English language that they can say one word and it brings up all this energy and shares so much more energy. But the word actually enhances it. And so it is so fun to see how when the word matches, you only need that one word. You know, because Gary talks about all the time being elegant in your speech. And this is what he means. More words does not mean you're more intelligent. Big words don't even mean you're intelligent if they're not matching, you know? And so it is when you're using words that match congruently and energetically, you create more change greater, faster. And I just absolutely, and it's so absolutely so fun, whether you're looking at the original definitions of words, or just using a word to give a narrative of an energy that you're perceiving. Because especially in these Being You classes, you know, a lot of people come in and this is the first time that they're ever exploring a concept of being them, or exploring using energy for anything other than that thing that they deny they have an awareness of all the time. And so when you say a word and it matches, their universe opens up. They get invited to more possibility. Because when your words aren't matching, that's when they go, I don't know, they just seem kind of weird, or I just didn't quite believe them, or whatever. But if you ever notice the speaker who is actually congruent and with their words, and I don't mean their words, because that's a whole other thing, right? Because it's like at the beginning, I said, when I was like, oh, my eyeball hurts, what would it take to change this? I meant it, but I didn't energetically, wasn't congruent with it.
Yeah.
So when a speaker is actually congruent with their words, it just a little bit, a few words, it opens people's universes and invites people in ways that nothing else ever does. It's amazing. It's amazing to me to do this.
I want to interrupt this broadcast to let anybody know who's just joining us. Donnielle and I are both Being You Certified Facilitators. We get to facilitate this wonderful class that came out of this book, Being You, Changing the World, by Dr. Dane here, in screen. You can find that. We should just have screen, like, anybody want a screenshot? Okay. You can get that at drdanehere.com. It's an amazing like intro tool to, I don't know, changing your whole freaking life. One of the things I wanted to say to what you were saying is that how many of us like unintentionally separate ourselves from what we're creating or what we're being in the world based on keeping ourselves small with our words. So I just got this picture. So I just did a Being You class in Boston. I was like, where was I? Last weekend. And I came to the salon like on a totally new high. I was acknowledging like the salon. I own a salon. Okay, I'm gonna back up. So I facilitate on the weekend, and then I come into my brick and mortar business where I own a salon and I do hair. Okay, you're all caught up. So
and she facilitates everybody just by her being, even when she's cutting hair and stuff. So it's not just on the weekends she does this Being You stuff. She always be.
Thank you. So I walked in a different energy, and I had made the demand that morning. Well, probably like moments after the class ended. Okay, cool. This has been playing in my world big time. And I'm just seeing where words play into this. Okay, so I've made the demand that every time I create something in the world, that I get dynamically changed the future that I'm creating, that I have to choose something that acknowledges that future that I'm creating. So like after a class that I did in January, I woke up next morning, I was like, what can I choose right now, today, to acknowledge the future that I just created, right? So I upgraded my flight to like Delta One and did that on the way home, which was like double the price of my original ticket for one way. But it just matched what I was creating. I had a different sense of the energy of what like I just chose, right? So I made the same demand after this class, and it was just permeating in my world. But what I chose that was different was I walked in the salon, like high on life, like super, like just excited to be alive. And people that like came in, whether clients or like staff or whatever, were like, hey, how was your weekend? I would usually be, because like, if they're not really following what I'm creating, like whatever, I just kind of be like, it was great. Like, how was your weekend? And then not really use my words to acknowledge what I was choosing. And that day it was totally different because I had made that demand that morning. So literally people are like, hey, how was your weekend? And I was like, it was fucking phenomenal. And I told watch people change their lives. And then I got to acknowledge I contributed to people changing their lives. And I said it out of my mouth, right? And I was just like being that all day with my words. And people, like a lot of times people are like, hey, how are you? And you're like, I'm great. And I was the whole day, I was like, I'm incredible. I am so happy to be alive. I love me. Like, I love my life. I love all the things. I love you. I love that we're here together. I was just like, but like, that was actually energetically congruent than the monotone, answer that just rolls off the tongue just to keep the conversation flowing. And what happened, you guys, and this is so cool. I'm so glad you chose this as the topic, Donnielle, because what happened was people started being like, why are you so happy to be alive today? And not that I'm not every other day, but I was willing to say it with my words and acknowledge it. And so then they started asking me more questions about what I do, Like what did you do that changed the world over the weekend? You know what I mean? Well, this is what I do. And it just, and then these deeper conversations got created because I was being energetically congruent with like all the energy that was in my world instead of like lessening it with like, I had a great weekend.
Yeah, and what's fun about that is you can see somebody who'd be like, I love me. I had a great weekend. And if they're going, yeah, kind of, people are like, I just kind of slap that person. Whereas with you, you were I love me. I had a great weekend. I changed the world. And people were like, yes, okay, can I have that too? Because you were doing the energy and the words, and I love it. And even to like the Delta thing you were talking about, the more you're even aware of the word, the energy behind the words you're using, you get to be more aware of things like that too. It's just being awareness of the energy on a different level. Of like, I am going to buy this ticket even though it's half or twice as much, and it's going to be awesome. And it is like I said, when you're actually matching the word, when you're congruent with the words, which is what a lot of people can hear, right? Because in this 10 seconds, we're still communicating with words. And us as a facilitator and being you just in the world, when you actually be you and let that through, that's the invitation for people. That's what I find is so phenomenal, so amazing, and such a fun thing to explore. I love it. So I love that story. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. There's something else going on up here. I've had a couple things going up here today. Watch out, everybody. Okay. So we were looking at we were looking at where so your ask is big, like you want to change something, but underneath the energy is like, I'm going to call it with my words, small. So asking for this, and then it's underneath is incongruent. And I'm also looking at the flip side. So like, I want this huge, big life. And I've literally just in the last, like 3 months been willing to say like what I actually want to create in the world, like what I actually am targeting. And whereas before I was like using my words to hide the bigness.
Yeah.
So like that also is totally energetically incongruent.
Yeah. Yes. And that's where the vulnerability comes in again. Because these are not places where you go to judge yourself. This is place to go, okay, cool. So this is what I'm actually looking at. This is what I'm asking for. This is what I'm doing.
Vivian is excited about my shiny hand. So I'm going to do it again for her. And then Cassie says, loving Donnielle Carter's giggle.
Oh, I love Cassie. I giggle with her anytime. Yeah, it is. Because it's like, and this is why I love using this topic with the being you. Because I get this is where a lot of people will judge themselves, will doubt that they're being them. Or they think that they're limited because they do have these big asks, right?
Yeah.
And then they go, why aren't I doing it? Why aren't I creating it? Maybe I don't mean it. And it's like, you could mean it. But what is the energy underneath? What is the energy underneath that is stopping that? That is creating the opposite, is doing not necessarily what you thought. And I mean, honestly, if you are vulnerable enough, if you have a big ask, you have a little ask, you have any ask, you ask a question, if you're vulnerable enough with yourself in that moment to go, okay, so truth, is this actually what I'm desiring? I have people all the time, you know, especially with bodies, and they'll be like, oh, you know, I was working with this 15-year-old girl, and she's like, she got some cancer. She got some cancer. She created cancer. And so she had this big ask of like, I want to get rid of the cancer. I want to change this. And I mean, yes, we can look at the original definition of want, but she's like, yes, this needs to change. But it never quite matched. And so I was like, okay, so truth, do you actually desire to change this? And she's like, no. Because for the first time, everything all the attention was on her and her family for the first time. Everybody else was always sick. She was always the good girl. So she was actually happy in the creation of the cancer. So she didn't actually allow it to change because she desired it. Okay. So that's why it's like being vulnerable and do you actually desire this? And then some people have big ass. It's like, an access, and here we go, scandal, right? People come in and they're like, oh yes, well, of course my target is, to go out there and facilitate classes, or my target is to be conscious or do this and whatever. And it's like, especially it's like, oh, my target is to do all of this travel. And my target is to facilitate all these classes because that's what a successful, happy person does, is to do it exactly like this. And then that's what it's going to be. And that's a huge ask. And sometimes that life doesn't actually work for people. And so it's like, it doesn't show up and then they get frustrated. Well, actually, did you desire that to show up? So it is really being that vulnerable moment of these, like, this big ask. First of all, have you already figured out what that ask is supposed to look like? How it's supposed to show up?
I like everything about the fact that I can't hear the K when you say, you have to figure out what you want that big ask to look like.
Yes.
This is where my mind went for a second. Keep going. Keep going.
Oh no, it goes with it because it's like I created the class, the energy of words being congruent with your asks. And I always really have to put that K in there because otherwise it just sounds like being congruent with your ask, which actually kind of works too.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing that I just said that like I wasn't willing to really like ask for, which is really interesting what will show up. And I just wanted to share this. So I love talking to people. Like, I love this, what we're doing right now. I love doing Facebook Lives. I love like making people laugh. I love like really being me.
Yeah.
Imagine that. So,
shocking.
I know. So I started to like ask, I'm like, okay, cool. I actually say the words of what's underneath this like kind of bigger than what I was doing before ask, when my true ask was, I wanted to do more like mainstream media stuff. I want to talk to people. I would love someday to have like a radio show or a, talk show, or I love that you're like, I don't even know oh, you're commenting. I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. But
multitasking.
I love it. But I wasn't willing to say it, Donnielle. I literally would be like, yeah, I want to like, but it was this little eating thing at me that like, God, if I don't tell anybody, like, and I don't even voice it to the universe with my words, like, how can it show up in my life? But I thought like, if I ask for this much and I get that, then okay, cool. I can ask for this much with my words. Okay, cool. And get that. And then I had built this like million step march into what I wanted, when all of a sudden, literally, like I would say, geez, maybe 2 weeks after like out my mouth, it came that was a target of mine. This show showed up randomly. And I did like, it showed up as in the BYCF thread, Being You Certified Facilitator thread. Someone was like, what if we did this? It was Doris who was on here. And she was like, what if we do this? And then I was like, oh, what if we do that? And then I was like, oh, I could contribute to that. Just thinking I'd contribute to it. It didn't even like pop that it was like something showing up that I'd asked for. And it was coming from like this friend, like far, far away, that I didn't even pop into my head when I thought I asked for it. Like sometimes we target like, oh, like this person can make it happen, whatever. Anyways, I digress with the story. But then somebody came and said, Sarah, why don't you? What'd you say?
Well, I was going to say, actually, it's not a digression, because that's what it's saying. It's just like a lot of times we have these big asks and then we've already decided how it's going to show up or what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, totally.
And so, yeah, so when you're actually asking a question, and it is a question, because that's also being congruent, because the number of times I see people ask a question and it's just a statement with an exclamation mark on the end. Oh, shockingly, it doesn't show up because they've already energetically put so many stipulations on how it shows up, what it's supposed to look like, where it's supposed to come from, instead of a random volunteering on a BYCF thread and somebody going, you're like sweet Doris going, hey, well, why don't you do this? And you're like, oh, I could do that. And blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And now here's the show.
Yeah.
So I think that's amazing.
Yeah. So like being congruent with your words is actually having a willingness to verbalize them to begin with.
Oh, yes. And that was the other thing, because it's like so many people, what I've seen, myself included, sorry, that other computer shut down. I don't know what's going on.
Fine.
What I used to function from, and I know a lot of people function from, is if we say it out loud, if we say it with words, A, it puts a limitation on it, doesn't necessarily have to be true. And B, we put it out there as a challenge that people are going to try to like get us for us or stop it. Or even C, it's real and true as long as it's inside of my head and nobody else can prove to me that it doesn't exist. So as soon as I say it out loud, and then other people are gonna like look at this and see it, and they're gonna think I'm an idiot, and everything that I'm secretly hoping for that will create and exist and be won't be. And so I'm just gonna sit back here and not say anything, because then I have my hope. Everything that is times the Godzilla is trying to create it. What can I supposed to realize? But yeah, so it's like, it is really interesting how we use these words as limitations, as stopping points, as a false representation of hope, because it's like literally the number of times I'm like, in my head, it's going to be amazing, but I'm not going to tell anyone or say anything or even verbalize it to myself, because then it won't come true, and then I'll have my hopes dashed. And I have to.
Yeah, I mean, even sharing that thing of like the ask.
Jinxing it. Yeah, like Marian said, jinxing it. Yeah.
It's like even just saying that out loud right now in front of the viewers and all the people who'll watch later and all that, like it's vulnerable to me. But then if you look at that, you guys, like, so even saying that, I was like, okay, I'm just put it out there because we're talking about it, right? And then, but where then if you just like even cognitively follow this, so I'm willing to finally say it, I'm voicing it, judge me if you want, think that like it'll never happen for me if you want, or give me all the kudos for it happening. I actually don't have to have a point of view about it, and I don't have to resist any of it. But what can happen now is like, this is out there now, right? So who might see that with my ask, and where are we not willing to just put it out there now? And then literally, like you could even just look at it like by referral, you're willing to talk to somebody on a plane about something you desire to create in the world, not hiding it at all. And they might know somebody who knows somebody, or they might have exactly what's required to have that come true. But if you're not telling anybody, it's not happening. If you're not putting it out there in the universe, like the chances that it happening are slimmer than if you were willing to get congruent and speak to what is actually true for you and what you're asking for. And that has been like for me a little while.
Well, and even in our marketing, because I have yet to really find any business out in the world that doesn't have to do with people somewhere. And so, like you said, yeah, it's talking to that person on the plane, or even putting out an ad or anything. It's like we have to put it out there to create it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, and this is such a multifaceted, because we haven't even gotten to like the original definitions of words, because I look that stuff up all the time, because when you use a word and energy comes up, and I know you know, there's a lot of words in foundation class and stuff like that, but I have to I know I don't know how long this is, but anyways, but before one word that I really like to talk about, which I find fascinating, is the word family. Okay. Because so we put words to an energy when we created the verbal and written language, whenever it was. Seemed like a good idea, right? And so when you say a word, it brings up an energy, which is why words could be translated, is because the same energy comes up when we use these words. And so I looked up the original definition for family, because it means so many things to so many different people, and it always brings up this energy. And whether you like family or don't like family, the original definition of the word of family is servants of a household, which I just find fascinating. So it's you know, we have this thing where a family becomes this, we're beholden to it, or almost enslaved to it. Well, yeah, because it used to be servants of a household. Yeah. And so, and like I said, I enjoy my family. I'm not saying family is bad, but it's like to start to become aware of the energy you're pulling up with what words you're using, because there's being congruent. And then there's also looking at the energy behind the words. And it's like, if I use this word, what energy comes with it? And it's getting clear on that as well. So it's like a lot of people like family. Well, that's why.
You know,
It's the original servants of a household.
Sorry, I could picture everybody that's going to be watching this to like go on Amazon and buy like a thesaurus, like right now. Just
Yep.
like, you know, for leisurely reading. Just be like, hey, how can I make this word greater? How can I make this word greater? And I love that so much. And so what I would love to do now is ask you where people can find you and what do you have coming up next that they can choose and all the things.
Gosh, you can always find me at my website, Donnielle.com. One of the benefits of having an unusual name, you get your own URL. So it's DONNIELLE.com. You can find me on the Access Consciousness site. I am doing some Right Body View workshop. I'm doing a Right Body View workshop in Brazil. That's also live streamed. I'm also doing a 2-part The Energy of Words. I think this one is called Creating Clear Communication. So it's like, have you ever spoken to somebody and been misunderstood? Well, what are you actually communicating? So that's all of that's on the Access site.
When does that start?
April something.
Awesome. April something. I know
April
that.
something.
I'm free that.
Yeah, so here, let me see. The Brazil. Oh, I'm also doing a 3-day body class in New York City. Come and play in New York City. So much fun. I'm doing that the first weekend of April. And the third weekend of April is the Brazil Right Body for You. And then April 9th starts the 2-part Energy of Words class.
Awesome. Well, I'm so grateful for this conversation and I hope all of my words were totally congruent and I was a good student. I just want to let everybody know that you can find us live this whole month. It's Thursdays at 3 p.m. and then it switches back to some other time next month. So we got a couple more of these, one more, I don't know, on Thursdays at 3 p.m. I also want to let everybody know you can find Dr. Dane Here's book, Being You, Changing the World, drdanehere.com or beingyouchangingtheworld.com. And then if you want to know more about the adventure of Being You, the Being You adventures from all the BYCFs, you can actually search just that on the accessconsciousness.com website and find out like where there's a Being You class going on near you. There are people all over the world who speak all different languages doing these classes. And it's like, they're just incredible. And there's no prereqs. Like you don't have to have ever gone to anything ever before that time. And you could just choose it and see what's up for you. And there's intros. So you can just go do a little 2-hour taster thing and see what's up. And they're like 1-day classes, 1.5-day classes, and 2-day classes. So,
and let me add to that. Even if you've done a ton of stuff, go to a Being You class. I'm telling you, the energies that are there, that are available, that are present, the vulnerability and the ability to speak to things and look at things, it will rock your world. I don't care how long or how many classes you've done. Don't be like, oh, well, it has no prereqs and I've already done all this, so I don't have to go. Get your freaking butt to a Being You class. It will change your world.
And what's so cool about Being You, here's the other really cool thing that I just happen to enjoy with all classes, any classes, anywhere. So you guys can look at like where, say you took, a certain course in college and then you took it from a different teacher, like whoever's leading the class, like it's a different class. It doesn't matter if the book is still the same, the manual is the same, it's a totally different class. And then who shows up and asks questions creates the class. So even if you've already taken a Being You class, like you're totally invited to look at like taking another one or taking another one with another facilitator or, whatever that is. So yeah. And the Being You Certified Facilitators are just a dynamic group of people who like have each other's backs. So don't feel like if you took one with one, you can't take one with the other. We don't believe in cheating and monogamy and class choice. So
no, we don't even believe in that with ourselves. You'll find us as facilitators in our other facilitators classes going, aren't you a facilitator of this? Yes, and I'm taking it.
Yeah. So anyways, thank you everybody for joining us. We'll see you next week on the Being. Yep.
And thank you, Sarah, for starting this. The energy of just, since this show's been going, so much fun, so dynamic, so much possibility I can feel spreading out into the world. So thank you for having that ask and being vulnerable enough to take that.
Thank you. And thank you. Thank you so much. And I will receive that. And I will also love to take a second and just acknowledge there were like maybe 10 of us that came together to look at like what this was going to look like. And everybody kind of has their like part. We have Alexa who like, does posting behind the scenes. And then like Sam is creating the Google Docs. And
I love Sam.
Yeah. And Betsy's in the thread, like cheering everybody.
I love Betsy.
Links, I know. And then Doris is in there, and she was like, the light bulb. She was the light bulb that went on and said, hey, let's create something. So it's just really cool, the gratitude that I have for all of these creators and what it looks like when people like get congruent on their ask and come together and be like, create this ish, and then stuff.
Yeah.
So what else is possible? What are the infinite possibilities with being you? Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Donnielle. And
thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time. Bye.